All right. So, I think Tom has an introduction, and Tony was here with us yesterday, but few of you came to this fresh today. You're not here today, yesterday. So, why don't you go a quick introduction, starting with Richard?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Richard Rushing. I'm CISO for Motorola Mobility. I have responsibility for our parent company as well, Lenovo. I've been CISO for 13 years, which makes me kind of like a cockroach. They can't kill me or get rid of me or anything else on that side of it, or at least haven't figured a way out. On that, I'm a little different because I come from both sides of the house. I've worked for large organizations. I've been doing this, I don't want to date myself, but I will, 35 years plus. That's all you'll ever get out of me. Been in the space. I've worked for GE, Siemens, as well as founded or advised on 5 separate startups that have all been successful and exited the industry on that side of it. So I love technology. I love security. I'm extremely passionate about it. If you talk to anybody about that, and glad to chat with anybody in here pretty much on any of the topics that are around there. So thank you.
Tom, just go again, if you don't mind.
So my name's Tom Patterson, and I am the Chief Trust Officer for Unisys. Which is a global critical infrastructure company that builds and operates critical infrastructure around the world. So banking systems and power systems, and we've been doing it for over 100 years. We're pretty good at it, and our differentiator is security. So as their Chief Trust Officer, my role was to work with our clients around the world that are very critical to their own particular infrastructure, and help them make sure they understand the trust aspects, what they need to do, communication, empathy, really work with them very closely. And as Val mentioned, a little over 2 years ago, our CEO, who sits on the NSTAC panel appointed by the president, made me our official point of contact to the Moonshot program, and I was the co-lead and author of that, and continue with that. My role is now to help operationalize the Moonshot as a national whole-of-nation effort.
Great. Tony?
Thanks, Val. Thanks for having me again. Tony Spinelli. I'm CIO of an entertainment media company called Urban One. Was a long time CISO. Now I'm a recovering CISO. Sit about 5 or 6 publicly traded boards of directors, also including the board of the NSA since 2006.
Great, thank you. And Tom mentioned about the national treasures that he's dealing with at the Moonshot program. I'll tell you, this is nothing less than a national treasure right here. And I didn't want to mention that are highlighted as much as we want to highlight the cyber futurists. So these are also cyber futurists, right? So with that hat on, let's go from Tony. We can start from you. What is your vision and of the future of cyber? What do you think are the big rocks to move?
Sure. I think it's very different than what we've seen in the past. I think there's this blend of business leadership and technology roles that I think we have to get crafted much better. It seems like we have really deep technical experts that can do what they need to do, and we have certainly business-led, compliance-led, governmental-led leadership that we need. I think there's going to be in the future more of a blend in those roles. Certainly, I think we've seen over the past 2 years, there's been a real change in terms of what's a great cybersecurity practitioner. In the places that I've been, moving away from going to places where you're pushing 2U devices into racks, and now a good cyber guy better know JSON, is certainly very different than we thought, right? So as we think about the future cyber leaders and cyber challenges, I see much more focus on the engineering side, but in the same way, we have to have that business side leadership to affect change.
I'll give you a multi-part answer. Tony mentioned that he sits on public boards. I've sat on 3 public boards. you probably found the same thing that I did, or find the same thing I did, is you're kind of lonely on those boards in terms of understanding, cyber and having that kind of background. At least it was for me. I think we need to make sure that governance of companies needs to understand cyber, as well as the management. You notice on the screen, one of the pillars is education. We have a program in the report called K through Gray. We think that everybody needs more of a cyber education. We think there should be no barriers of entry towards learning what they need to know. It doesn't mean everybody needs to become a Python programmer. What that means is they need to understand what their roles are about security, and that will in fact make all of this work a lot better. So I'm a believer in upping the reporting of security experts in an organization. I wrote a book 15 years ago advocating for the concept of a chief trust officer and having some, getting to report not to a CIO. And, we're starting to see that now, but it's still very early. I think I search in my title on LinkedIn, and there's about 50 of us out there around the world. But that's, a very small percentage. So I think reporting a structure within an organization, adding more security people to the governance that are well-trained and prepared to be directors, and also then just having the overall national educational system really step up its game and let everybody by default learn about this in all sorts of ways.
So I guess I'm the grim reaper of the bunch on that side. I think we're at an inflection point. 2020 will be the inflection point. If you actually look at all the statistics, whether it's cost, whether it's breaches, you name the inflection point, we're at a hockey stick. It would be great if we were making money like that, or popularity, or anything else. The problem is that it's accelerating and getting worse. So we're at that inflection point. We'll be at a turning point in probably 5 years, and it's either going to turn for the better or it's going to turn for the worse. And that's literally the ticking clock that exists. Either we're going to get a handle on the cyber, we're going to get a handle on the people issue, we're going to get a handle on the technologies issue, or we're going to be overrun at this point in time. Just simply due to the fact that the criminal elements of the world, or the people that want bad things to have happen, will be continually doing that. And whatever we do, they will be 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps ahead of us. So we're already at that situation where we're behind. We have to catch up. Normally, sometimes it's a people problem. If we get people, and lots of people, train people, we could catch up very quickly. Now, not having that, or not being able to tap into those resources, we're now at that situation where it's there. And we're not at the level where AI is building things. It takes humans to build the technology to fix the problems that are actually there. And I think that's one of the key gaps, is we're behind. We kind of knew we were behind. We were living on borrowed time, and we're coming back on that side of it.
So one of the things I think is in our favor, Grim Reaper, is that...
You want me to get my cloak?
It is Halloween month. No, I'm really optimistic because the companies, organizations, governments around the world are going to be adopting AI. They are going to be adopting 5G for all sorts of business reasons, not security reasons. But that requires it. They're so different. That requires these big changes to come. So if we get behind the implementation of these new technologies, improved security and privacy and trust can ride along with the business and digital transformations that are underway for all sorts of other reasons with other budgets. So as we see organizations move towards becoming more digital, move towards adopting AI to save money or to provide better service, and 5G for better communications and better identity systems, because everybody hates passwords and they don't work. But as they start to do that, if we get together and in an organized way and really help them, we think we can, in fact, improve the overall trust of the nation and security without a major dramatic separate security push.
So I think you talked about the board, talked about the technology, and I think coming to Tony next, I think the future of cyber and in general security and overall social socioeconomic growth that which cyber enables, you are a very passionate believer about talent and helping to grow the cyber capacity and capability. Can you talk about the future of talent that we need in cyber?
Yeah, I think we talked about it yesterday, Val. I think it's certainly important to highlight is that, the next generation of talent, we're just not going to be able to produce enough if we're relying on, universities and colleges with four-year degrees. It's just, it's already a fact that it's not working. We certainly have to think more about models that have been very, very successful outside of the U.S. around, apprenticeship and vocational schools. I think there's just so much we can learn from them here in the U.S., and we could probably, establish some leadership. It'd be great to see companies or educational foundations, establish vocational programs in certain cities, especially large cities, where this could become kind of the example of the future when you think about apprenticeships. There's so many overlooked communities in the United States, especially large cities, where individuals, I'd say between the ages of 18 and 28, have been disenfranchised by the cost of university. It's actually staggering. And the amount of bright minds that are available and certainly want to understand, what is cyber engineering, what is tech engineering, and have the capacity to do so, it's very shameful that this is, the place that we live and we, don't think about those things. So it's really a call to action. I think every person in this room needs to really think about how they can make a difference in the lives of individuals that have been overlooked and passed over from, the staggering cost of university, when there's, a tremendous amount of bright minds that would love these opportunities.
And then that is so true. I had the opportunity to work with Tony on this very recently. So, really, really moving and motivating. So, Tom, take it forward in terms of, so we talked about, the cyber capacity is not just capacity at the bottom, at the workforce, but also at the top, like leadership. How are we enabling leadership to embrace and grow into this future of cyber?
Well, we need, like I said, everybody to get together. I think it takes behavioral changes. Kids have to want to be part of this. They have to then be, made available. The tools need to be made available. In Augusta, Georgia, where I spent some time helping them, we start them at age 6. Teaching them Python coding, and those kids are great. They can write full Python code. Then there's programs that are outside of traditional education, like the Cyber Patriot program that the NSA sponsors. That's just been a boon for kids that don't have the right school system and don't have the right education system, but are in high school, really want to get in there. So there's no limit to where you can go by working through programs like that. Then at the higher education level, absolutely, we're in the report, we talk about more directed grants as opposed to just open grants. There's plenty of money being granted around, but having some of it really focused so that there are jobs for people that want to come in and spend the time learning about quantum resistant encryption and learning about how to do these kind of things that we know are going to be necessary. We can teach a computer to identify a deep fake, but we need lots of people that learn how to do that and stay on top of that and make sure that's available in our phones and our eyeglasses and our cars and everything else. So there's a race underway, but education is one of reason we made it one of our 6 pillars. We need to start it at the earliest ages and go all the way through. Tony's completely right. There's so many untapped groups, and there's geography and there's poverty and there's all sorts of good reasons why they've been detached. But we need to step across those lines and really make sure we reach out and to give everybody the ability to engage, because this will take a whole of nation.
Whole of nation. That's great. So, Richard, you just met with, had a roundtable with the interns, and that's probably some direct feedback and direct input. So that discourse has started, and you're a carrier of that. So tell us a little bit about what your intentions are with the young people.
Yeah, I think it's one of the key things. That there's particular reasons. Some of them are selfish. When I retire, I do want to be able to go to ATM and get money out. I would like my infusion pump not to try to kill me on occasions and things like that. So You need these people so I can retire. That's my selfish reason behind it. But my personal reason is that it's a multi-prong approach. There's not a single answer. Because if you say, okay, we will go train college graduates or anything else, there's a 4-year lead time on getting people out on that side of it. So it's not, you'll be 4 years down the road if we started today to get the people out. And that's not going to work. So you have to use multi-prongs, and this is wonderful with all the different types of services that are in there. The most popular club at the high school that I go to is Girl Code. You would not think of this, but that tells you that there is a huge underpinning of people that are interested in technology. We sponsor a high school event in Chicago as part of the city colleges and everything else. And it was really interesting. We brought in about 200 students that were high school. And the first question we asked them, how many people are considering a career in cybersecurity? 3 people raised their hands. After we were done that day, we did capture the flag types of things. We did simulations. They talked to a bunch of us. We talked to them and everything else. There was 112 people. The question was asked again after that. It is just getting their excitement and their passion to be able to do this. They live on these devices. They live in the technology every day. And that's where we need to grab those people for. Before it was, you had to find somebody that was tech savvy. You had to find somebody that was wanting to do this. Now they are in the same spot that's there. We need to give them the opposite side of that. You can get paid and do this and what you're passionate about doing it. And I think that's the key area is there's not a single answer. There's multiple answers and they're all going to apply upon that. And we have to try to focus on multiple types of those situations to get veterans in, to get females into the diversity, into these impoverished people into the areas. It is one of those things that are there. How do I quickly jumpstart people? Apprentice programs are great examples of that. Chicago City colleges have an apprentice program for those things that they've partnered with businesses that are there that are sponsoring students to come do basic 2-year work of, hey, we pay you to go to school and come work for us at the same time. And I think that is the key elements that you have to kind of go with this, is that there's not a single solution that's going to solve everything. There's a bunch of small solutions that are going to solve these problems.
I think we have another obligation in the same vein. It's not just to how can we fill our pipeline of new talent in the cyber world. I think we have the obligation, and I wrote for college graduation season this spring an article about it's our obligation to help teach cyber and security to all the people that aren't going to be in the security business. If you're going to be in any other industry in this day and age, if you graduate and get into the workforce without a really good understanding of security and cyber and how computers work and how the internet works, you're going to be way behind in whatever profession you go and choose. So I think we need to make sure we do this very holistically and not just look to pad our own workforce, but to make sure that the whole of nation and the civilized world has the kind of people we need that can run the world when we retire.
No, and it's very clear. Cyber is one of the few elements inside of an organization that is horizontal. It's not vertical. It is horizontal. It touches everything around that. Sales, marketing, HR, all that kind of information is touched by cybersecurity, which is kind of a unique set of organizations that are horizontal and not in a vertical aspect of that or siloed.
Yeah, absolutely. So, all right, and I think, these are great thoughts, and I want to open this up a little bit longer for this, for the audience, because I think the future of cyber needs to be diverse, not only talent-wise, not only capability-wise, but also kind of the whole of society and input-wise, right? So, you got some of the best people in this industry, not just cybersecurity. They can trust information, security all together. So, questions? Go ahead, Mina.
Great panel. I really appreciate all you do for education and cybersecurity. Do you think that cybersecurity, because of our infrastructure, is now dependent on cyber? Do you think our curriculum in K-12 schools should include cybersecurity as part of the curriculum?
I'll start mine. Definitely a yes. On that side of it, it does need to be tailored for what is important to the students in K through 12 on that side of it that's there. And I think that's one of the key areas that you don't want to learn necessarily about buying things or anything else or e-commerce when I don't have a credit card or anything else. But cyberbullying, personal identifiable information, what to post, what not to post, how your phone transmits data and things like that. That's the key elements that gives them the interest. Because you want to stimulate that interest to stimulate the growth to move that forward.
But I just don't want anyone to think that they have to stop there if their particular school system doesn't help them. That was what, I met the young man at lunch today that gave us that great talk. His school didn't have it. It's like, oh, darn. There's a lot of other programs like the Cyber Patriot and others. If Girl Scouts has a badge, Boy Scouts has, there's a lot of programs, national and local. And so, yes, absolutely. I believe this needs to get embedded in from K on up and continue on into as far as someone can live, they can be useful. They need to understand this stuff. And again, the goal should not be now you need to be a cyber programmer. It should be you understand this, so whatever you want to do, you'll be better at it.
I had a question here.
Yeah, so I spent a good amount of time really focused on digital transformation, driving innovation and technology implementation on the battlefield for DoD. And then when I transitioned to the private sector, you look at McKinsey, you just walk across the board on the major top-tier consulting firms, and you see digital transformation fail consistently, time and time again within organizations. And it seems like an amazing thing of what you're talking about, like the cybersecurity moonshot, really is a microcosm model for how do we get digital transformation right at a societal level, but how do we do that at the organizational level? And when we break that, there's the Rosetta Stone there, and when we translate that model down, we begin to realize that it really starts with people, and the technology is a pinnacle and essential piece, but it really just starts with us.
That is a beautiful, important point. We did do this for a nation, for our nation. But on Monday, I'm headed to sit with the governor of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania and his leadership team, where I've revised my speech to talk about lessons of the national cyber moonshot to be implemented in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania.
Right.
And so take it down to that level. Last year in Davos, Val invited me to talk about how this works globally through the entire civilized world, take it up a level. All of these things, I think, can be applicable at any level. Behavior changes. We got briefed by all sorts of smart people that had nothing to do with cyber. Right. Says unless you change the hearts and minds of everybody, right, it won't work. It doesn't matter how good your gizmos are or how smart your people are. So we have to have a focus on that at any level, whether it's a school system or a city or a state or a commonwealth or a nation or a world. So I think taking advantage, please, I invite everybody to read these reports. The Moonshot report is out, but there's also the second report that just got approved by the White House last month that's also available on the same website now. That's just on the ecosystem, just advice on how we can build a trusted value chain ecosystem and sort of the direction we're going to be headed there. And encourage people like you especially that's got experience both on the DoD side and then working on the civilian side. We'd love to have your input. We'd love to have all your inputs on this program as it rolls out.
Yeah, it's also an issue of sequencing. I wrote a blog, you can go out and look at it today. It's on the National Association of Corporate Directors. I write a lot about digital transformation, and the reason why digital transformation typically will fail at most enterprises is it's a sequencing issue. And you guys know the story, right? The business wants to become digital. We want to move faster. We want to use cloud. We want to use SaaS. We want to get everything out of our infrastructure, and they go forward. And what I've wrote about umpteen times and talked about is that if you want to become digital, you have to go slow to go fast. Meaning you have to have cybersecurity be digital first. right? And people don't understand what that even means when I say cybersecurity has to be digital first, right? You have to understand infrastructure as a code. Your cyber team has to understand how to code. You have to think of everything in terms of cloud, SaaS, all of these things that your business is going to use, and transform your organization first. Because if you try to become digital with a cyber team model that's all based on data centers and appliances, and you become digital, and now you have this attack surface that is an exponent of what you had before, it's exponentially larger, you're in a very, very high-risk situation. And that's why a lot of these things fail or get put on hold is, wow, we're now in the pit of misery, right? And what are we going to do? Oh, let's go get some of that cyber thing I heard about on that airplane magazine. And I'm sure we'll be able to figure this out
So you
quickly.
have sat on boards.
Right, so I'm glad you brought that up, because I think, and hopefully people will listen, and I wrote this blog, and then they told me a blog's supposed to be less than 5,000 words. Tony, what's wrong with you? I think it's 1,000.
Manifesto.
Yeah, it was basically a manifesto that I wrote because I was so upset about this, right? So, apologies for that, but it's a great thing that you bring up.
Absolutely. No, that's a great question, and I can't hold back the shout out to the team I have up there. My colleague at EY, Kaushal and Kumar and Kalol and Rohit. These are guys that work in the background to make it happen. And you know what? We get called in at the last moment when they think, oh, you know what? This is probably a good time to get someone from cyber plugged in, right? And the digital transformation in the rail has already left the station. So you have to really make a run for it. So, well, this has been a great panel, and this has been a great story about the moonshot. When Harold said, if we approach it, but I think we'll make it. I just held back. Why is it not a Mars shot? But I understand. You explained it well, so that was a great job done. And I wish you all the success, and all of us will collaborate to make it happen.
We're looking for you all to roll up your sleeves and help.
Excellent.
Thank you.